My lazy wife's father died, and she inherited his house and $33 million. She kicked me out saying, "Find somewhere else to live or die. I don't care. You're useless now." Days later, the lawyer laughed. "Did you even read the will?" My wife went pale because the will said, "When my father-in-law, Richard Hayes, died, I thought grief might finally humble my wife, Clarissa. Instead, it made her cruel." Richard was old school, built a business empire from scratch, worth over $33 million, plus a mansion on the hill that looked like something from a magazine. I sat by his bedside during his last months, feeding him soup, listening to his stories, while Clarissa was too stressed to visit. When he passed, she didn't cry. She opened champagne. At the reading of the will, Clarissa wore a black designer dress that probably cost more than my car. She crossed her legs, smirked, and waited for her name to be called. When the lawyer announced that she'd inherited everything, she didn't blink. She just said, "Well, it's about time." That night, she looked me dead in the eye and said, "You know what, Darren? You can leave now. I don't need you anymore." I thought she was joking. She wasn't. 3 days later, I came home from work to find my things in garbage bags by the front door. "What's going on?" I asked. She didn't even look up from her phone. "Find somewhere else to live or die. I don't care. You're useless now." I just stood there. 7 years of marriage erased in a sentence. When I didn't move, she rolled her eyes. "Don't make this dramatic. I'll Venmo you for gas." She handed me my car keys like she was tossing scraps to a stray. I left. No yelling, no begging, just silence. I drove to the Sunset Motel, $49 a night, flickering neon sign that said Sue Amol instead of Sunset. The carpet smelled like mold and bad decisions. I sat on the bed staring at the water-stained ceiling and thought, Richard would never have wanted this. That's when it hit me. Richard planned everything. The man had color-coded files for his sock drawer. Would he really hand $33 million to a daughter who couldn't even pay her own credit card bill without crying? I remembered something he'd said 6 months before he died. We were watching an old war movie together when he turned to me and said, "You're a good man, Darren. Better than this family deserves." At the time, I laughed it off, but now I wasn't so sure. So I called his lawyer, Charles Whitmore, old, sharp, and all business. When I introduced myself, he almost dropped the phone. "Darren? Good heavens, where have you been? Your wife said you'd moved out of state and didn't want contact about the estate." "She what?" He sighed. "Son, you'd better come in tomorrow morning. There's something you need to see." I barely slept. By sunrise, I was sitting across from him in an office that smelled like mahogany and money. Charles slid a thick envelope toward me. "This is the real will." "The real will?" I echoed. He flipped it open. Even upside down, I saw my name. "Primary beneficiary, Darren Morrison." I froze. "That's impossible." Clarissa said. Charles smirked. Clarissa said a lot of things. Unfortunately, none of them were true. He adjusted his glasses and began reading aloud. "The bequest to my daughter, Clarissa Hayes, is conditional upon her treatment of her husband, Darren Morrison, following my death. Should she fail to treat him with respect and dignity, her inheritance shall be revoked and transferred to Mr. Morrison." I blinked. "So by kicking me out, she forfeited everything," he said, grinning. "House, accounts, all of it." Richard was a meticulous man. He knew who deserved what. My heart pounded so hard I thought I might pass out. Charles leaned back, amused. "Richard once told me his daughter was arrogant enough to hang herself with her own rope. Looks like he was right." That afternoon, the paperwork was signed. By sunset, her accounts were frozen, her cards declined, and every asset in Richard's estate bore one name, mine. When I drove back to the mansion, Clarissa was on the porch, screaming into her phone. "What do you mean my accounts are frozen? I have millions. Hello? Hello?" I parked, stepped out, and jingled a new set of keys. She turned, eyes wide. "Darren, what are you doing here?" "Coming home," I said. She blinked. "You're lying." I handed her a copy of the will. She scanned it, her face draining with every line. When she reached the clause about respect and dignity, she swayed like she might faint. Charles's words echoed in my head. She hung herself with her own rope. And as she dropped the papers onto the marble floor, I smiled.